Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today I'm going to be ranking every single NHL prospect pool from 31 down to number 1. Now, with the NHL season almost all the way through, I thought this was the perfect time to update the prospect pool rankings, look through every single NHL team, and see where they place in 2021. And when it comes to this year's prospect pool rankings, where does your favorite team place? Are they one of the best prospect pools, one of the most average, one of the worst? Watch till the end to find out all the rankings and all the picks, and hit that subscribe button if you're new. 60% of the people that are watching the videos are not subscribed, so every bit helps. And please subscribe for more hockey content and prospect content just like this. But as I go through this wild adventure through every single NHL team, and to see where your favorite team places as well in the official rankings, let me know down in the comments down below, of course, if you have anything you change about the list. I'm always open to constructive criticism, and I'll gladly be proved wrong any day of the week. So let me know what you guys think of the rankings. But we're going to start out today at number 32, and easily the worst prospect pool in the entire list. And I might get controversial here, but looking at their prospect pool, there's nothing to look at, and that is the Seattle Kraken. I'm not really sure what the Kraken are doing with themselves right now. They have 0 forward prospects, 0 defensive prospects, 0 goaltending prospects. It's just an absolute travesty. I mean, if I'm a Seattle Kraken fan and I'm looking at that future, I'd be pretty devastated. I'm not telling you how to feel, Kraken fans, but I'm telling you how to feel, Kraken fans, because this is just simply embarrassing. Now, actually getting into the serious side of things and going into number 31, we're going to start out with the worst prospect pool in the NHL and go to the Boston Bruins. And I'm not really sure too many people are surprised by this ranking. Even Bruins fans can admit that the prospect pool isn't the greatest. There are a couple of saving graces on that prospect pool, guys that I think will have a pretty good future. Jack Studnicka is the main one, who I still think will be a good NHL player. Hasn't really fit on the Bruins so far this year, which was a little bit surprising given his stock going into the season, but I think he will be fine and will likely still be a 5 middle 6 player. And then you also got the guy that they drafted the highest in this last draft in Mason Lowery, who has really surpassed my expectations and has actually looked really good in the USHL this year. He is on the older side in terms of defenseman in the USHL, but he has been absolutely spectacular on offense. But we're going to go on to number 30 and go on to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it's kind of the same situation, but I do think they have a lot more of big-time guys, mainly in Samuel Poulin, who's a great prospect overall in terms of IQ and in terms of skating and in terms of overall offensive production. He's been great as well in the QMJHL this year as expected, and he's a guy that I could see becoming as high as a second-line player. We'll see if that actually does turn out, but I think the tools are definitely there to get to that level. You also got forwards like Nathan Lagari, who I think are pretty decent, and goaltenders like Joel Blomqvist and Kelly Klang, who can definitely hold their own in their own right and could be potential NHL players down the line. But now going on to number 29 and going to the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I want to stress this right now that I don't think the Lightning prospect pool is bad. It's just not necessarily what I'm looking for in a major prospect pool in the league. Now, I do want to say that it's pretty much quantity over quality, which in some respects, I think for Tampa certainly works. I mean, you see a guy like Ross Colton coming out of nowhere and being amazing this year. They're going to develop these guys into absolute all-stars out of nowhere, so don't worry about that. But then going on to number 28, I'm going to go to the New York team that pretty much has the worst prospect pool by all means, but they've had some graduations as of late, which I think have kind of led to that, but they still have some good talent there, I think. With Oliver Wahlstrom and Ilya Sorokin gone, the New York Islanders come in at number 28. I still think there's some talent, though, there with guys like Bodie Wild and Robin Salo on defense, perhaps. In terms of the forward group, you got guys like Kiefer Bellows and Simon Holmstrom, who I think will be NHL players in the future. But now moving on to the 27th spot in this year's 2021 prospect pool rankings, I'm now going to move on to a team that has gotten better, I think, in the prospect pool, and especially after this draft, is pegged to be a lot higher on the list, I would say, in the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, the Columbus Blue Jackets don't have a great prospect pool right now, but with how many picks they've loaded up for these next couple of drafts, really, I think the Blue Jackets will be a lot higher in time. But for right now, there is still some good prospects to work with, guys like Kirill Marchenko and Daniil Tarasov, I'm pretty big fans of, but again, a lot of that prospect pool is more quantity over quality, and that quality quantity has kind of dried up in the past couple of drafts with them trading almost every pick away. Again, that will change in the near future, but for right now, it still leaves some to be desired. But then going on to number 26, I'm going to move on to the Arizona Coyotes. This is kind of the opposite, I would say, the Columbus Blue Jackets. They got Barrett Hayton, Victor Soderstrom, two guys who I think will be great NHL players in time, but not really too much other than that. Prosvetov, I'm pretty impressed by on the goaltending side of things, but again, just not that much really, and with their draft surplus also drying up recently, you could kind of see why that's the case. And now getting us started with the number 25 spot, I'm going to go to a team that's prospect pool has fluctuated a decent bit, but I still think there's a lot to look forward to in the future that I think will translate to the NHL level in the St. Louis Blues. Now, the Blues have a decent amount of just solid prospects. Scott Prunovich, you got Klim Kostin on that group, Joel Hofer, who I think is going to be decent, and Nikita Alexandrov, you got guys like Dylan Peterson and Jake Neighbors, who I think are going to be NHL players, but I don't think there's much of a quality outside of those guys. And then you go on to number 24, and I'm going to go on to a team that's prospect pool was among the worst in the NHL just a couple of seasons ago, but has improved so mightily since then in the Washington Capitals. And I think it is really the Connor McMichael effect that they've really had that step up. With Connor McMichael, Hendrix Lapierre, that prospect pool looks a lot better. Alexander Alexiev has taken that next step in the pro level too, and I think that's definitely helped. But obviously Connor McMichael and Lapierre are the two big ones and two guys who I could see becoming top six forwards in the future. And especially after this next pick, we're going to get into teams that really have a great prospect pool to offer and some amazing young talent too. We're going to go to the Chicago Blackhawks at number 23. Now, the Blackhawks prospect pool is in a weird position. You still got some great prospects there like Lucas Reichel and guys like Comesso and Wyatt Kaiser, who I think will be decent guys in the NHL. But the Blackhawks prospect pool should be better, especially now with the graduations of guys like Khrushchev and Ian Mitchell. Their prospect pool, it just is a little bit lackluster with the position they're in right now. But then going on to number 22, this is kind of an interesting team as well in terms of their prospect pool position right now. It'll get a lot better after this next draft, but right now, especially the position they're in, leaves a lot to be desired, and that is at number 22, the Buffalo Sabres. Now, the Buffalo Sabres still have some good prospects, don't get me wrong. Jack Quinn is going to be good. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, I think, is going to be good. But besides that, I think Ryan Johnson's going to be decent. But it's just kind of outside of that, I don't really see too many bona fide, formidable prospects in their pool. And again, with how bad they've been as of late, with how many times they've missed the playoffs, their drafting philosophy has just been straight poor. But then going on to number 21, we're going to go to a team that I think has had some pretty great graduations over the last few years, and still their future looks good even with their incompetent GM. We're going to go on to the Vancouver Canucks at number 21. With me, the Vancouver Canucks are in an interesting position. Nils Hoglander has graduated. You got the graduates of the years prior, and guys like Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson. The prospect pool has transitioned exactly how you'd want it to, but they still have some good prospects to offer. Guys like Jack Rathbone, I think, are going to be great. Ole Levy, I guess, is still a prospect. You got still some good guys in that system like Cole Lind. But going on to the next three teams in my rankings, these are three teams that I think are super underrated in terms of their prospects right now that don't get enough credit. And I'm going to start out with number 20 and my favorite team in the NHL in the Dallas Stars. Now, the Dallas Stars, if you consider Jake Onger a prospect, have so much to work with, and that's not considering Jason Robertson, who could potentially win the Calder Trophy this year, but Jake Onger, Thomas Harley, Maverick Bourque, Riley Damani, who could be one of the AHL's leading scorers this year, coming straight from the OHL after last year. There's a ton to look forward to when it comes to the Dallas Stars prospect pool, and a lot of decent quantity as well. I think the Stars have a lot to offer, and a lot to be excited about, too. Then going on to number 19, though, and in my opinion, the most underrated prospect pool in the NHL, I gotta go to a team that's kind of proved me wrong in terms of some of their picks in the San Jose Sharks. Now, I thought they were one of the winners of the 2020 draft, but they have just looked even more wise since then. Even picks that I weren't 100% on, guys like Thomas Bordeleau, have just smashed my expectations out of the park. NCAA Rookie of the Year, and that's kind of just how that San Jose Sharks drafting has been as of late. Especially these past couple of seasons, they've been fantastic and have a lot better of a future than they did a couple of years back. But then going on to number 18, I'm going to go to a team that I think also has another underrated prospect pool in the Calgary Flames. I mean, just looking at some of the options they have just in terms of the forward group, you've got guys like Connor Zary, Jacob Pelletier, a lot to look forward to as well for Calgary, and especially guys like Dustin Wolf, who I think are one of the most underrated, best goalie prospects out there. I think they have a lot better of the future than people are giving them credit for. Now, obviously, the team right now is not fantastic, but the prospects they have, I think, can kind of alleviate some of those problems in the future. Let's hope. But now moving on to number 17, and at the 17th spot, I'm not sure if this prospect pool is underrated, but I do see some prospects here kind of getting less attention than I think they should. Going on to number 17, though, I'm now going to move on to the Vegas Golden Knights. And the Vegas Golden Knights, if we're just looking at the forward side of things, have so much to work with and are among some of the best forward prospect pools in the NHL. With guys like Peyton Krebs, Lucas Elvenes, Ivan Morozov, my boy Pavel Dorofiev, and Brendan Brisson, who they got in the last draft. I think there's a lot to work with there, and even on defense, it's not the worst. Guys like Lucas Cormier, I think will be NHL players in the future and will be contributors. Not bad for a team that's always contending like the Vegas Golden Knights are. Then going on to number 16, we're going to go to a team that's not always contending, but has had some success as of recent, and does have a lot of good prospect talent to go around, especially when it comes to the high-end guys in the Edmonton Oilers. Now, obviously, Dylan Holloway is the big one there for me at number 1, but you also got players like Evan Bouchard, Philip Broberg, Samorukov on defense, who I think will be NHL players for sure. And even on the forward group, especially recently, they've had some pretty good picks. Guys like Ty Tullio and Carter Savoy, who I think have the potential to be NHL contributors, especially Carter Savoy, who will either be amazing at the NHL level or will turn out to absolutely nothing. But there's a lot of potential on the Edmonton Oilers team, and if they actually play Evan Bouchard games, whether it be in the AHL or the NHL, they might have some more success there. Kind of the same thing as Ville Heinola, where they'd rather sit him and have him do nothing than actually playing games, which is the dumbest thing I have ever heard in my entire life. But now getting us set inside the top 15, and at number 15, I'm going to go to another underrated prospect pool in the Nashville Predators. Now, as a Stars fan, I don't like them too much, but I gotta give some credit where it's due because they've drafted pretty well as of late. You got some great high-end talent, guys like Yaroslav Askarov, who, if we're discounting Jesper Wallstedt, is the best goaltending prospect in the NHL right now. I wouldn't worry about the World Juniors. He's been elite in the KHL this year too, as such a young player as well on top of that. But you got David Ferentz, who I think might be one of the most underrated prospects in the NHL. As a Boston University fan, watching a lot of him, he's gotten better and better with every single passing year. And with Nashville's development system, there's no doubt in my mind that he will become a top 4 D-man in the NHL. Then going on to number 14, we're going to go to a team that is one of the main contenders in the NHL year in and year out, but still has so much to look forward to in terms of their future in the Colorado Avalanche. Now, they have one of the best forward prospects in the NHL and one of the best defensive prospects in the NHL, and just that by itself for a team that is in the position they're in is pretty spectacular. But the Avalanche have drafted so exceedingly well, it's kind of stupid. They got guys like in the forward group as well behind that, like Pukage and Shane Bowers and Martin Kotz, who have taken those next steps into the pro level too. The Avalanche are good, and I don't think that's a surprise to anybody whatsoever. Then going on to number 13, though, and a team that has taken, I think, quite a bit of steps in the prospect pool in the Winnipeg Jets. And obviously, Cole Perfetti helps, Ville Heinola helps, but they've had some pretty great depth improvements, too. Logan Stanley has taken that next step in the NHL, but besides that, you got guys like Chisholm and other forward prospects who I think have been pretty great as of late. The Jets, though, have a lot of good star talent in the future, and Cole Perfetti will be just right at home on that high-power, high-octane offensive Jets team. And next up, going on to number 12 in the prospect pool rankings, and a team that I just don't think will die when it comes to just getting NHL caliber prospects on the level. We're going to go on to the Philadelphia Flyers at number 12. Now, the Philadelphia Flyers, I don't think have any star prospect. They have some really good ones, though. Obviously, Cam York leads that group, but you got players who I'm a big fan of, guys like Bobby Brink, Emil Andre, Morgan Frost will be coming in the near future full-time. There's a ton there, and my boy Zay Wisdom, of course, who has been so good in the AHL, so surprising in that area, and the Flyers just continue to be a great development team. That's how it's been in these past few years, and they'll continue to find guys out of completely nowhere. Then going on to number 11, though, and we continue the rankings on to the Florida Panthers, a team that has I think the same similar situation as San Jose, where they've been just coming out of nowhere and drafting amazingly as of late. I love their 2020 draft, but just overall, guys like Anton Lundell, Spencer Knight, I mean, it's kind of like Colorado, where they have one of the best forward prospects and one of the best goalie prospects out there. They are really good, though, for the future, especially when it comes to depth. Guys like Saron Noel and Kaliachanok and this past draft, I mean, I would have to name so many different prospects. They got a lot of both in terms of quantity and quality, and I think the Panthers have a pretty good future in that way with how good they've been, especially this season, too. Then getting us inside the top 10 officially, and now going on to number 10, to a team that, I mean, it's kind of obnoxious how how well they're drafting as of late in the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't think many people want to admit just how good of a pool the Leafs have right now, and I think a couple of years ago they would have maybe been outside the top 15, but this past 2019 and 2020 drafts have solidified themselves as not just one of the best drafting teams, but one of the best scouting and development teams in the NHL, which was not really too much of a surprise, but it is the way it is. I mean, I could just list off the 2020 guys, but in terms of their overall prospect pool, Nicholas Robertson, you've got Sandin, you've got Liljegren, who's still there. You've got so many solid guys that I'll just list on the screen. There's too much to talk about and too much to mention. But now we get well inside the top 10 and going on to number 9, my 9th best prospect pool in the NHL in 2021. I'm going to go to a team that has had its fair share of losses, but has recouped it rather well in the Minnesota Wild. Now, losing Kirill Kaprizov would make any prospect pool drop, but they still have some amazing talent to go around. When Marco Rossi is back and healthy, he'll still be an amazing prospect, I think. Kalen Addison's, of course, on that team. You got Murat Kuzadinov on that team. You got Ryan O'Rourke on that team. Capo Kakinen still considered a prospect, I think, right now. There is a lot for Minnesota to be excited about, not just this year, but in the future to look forward to. Obviously, Kirill Kaprizov has been the revelation, as I've been talking about forever, that he would be, but the Minnesota Wild have some more, they have some more reinforcements coming, that's for sure, and they'll be even more scary in the future. Then going on to number 8, though, and a team that I think also has improved quite a bit in the prospect pool, in the New Jersey Devils. They've had quite a few graduations this year, and guys like Ty Smith, who have been really good, and guys like Shranagovich, who have been good surprises, but they still got a lot to work with, obviously. The big one, of course, is Alexander Holtz, but they got a lot of great depth. They would be, in my opinion, one of the best surplus prospect pools in the NHL, some of the best quantity in the NHL, but they got also the quality to be on top of that, and especially after this draft, could be inside the top 5 for sure. And next up, we're going to move on to number 7 in the prospect pool rankings, and I'm going to go on to the Anaheim Ducks. Not the Detroit Red Wings yet. We'll get into them later. But for the Anaheim Ducks, obviously the top 2 in Trevor Zegras and Jamie Drysdale do factor in and lead the way when it comes to the prospect pool, but there's still a ton of other talent that I think will definitely be solid in the future. Guys like Josh Mahura and other guys on that defense I think are pretty decent. But the forward group outside of Trevor Zegras I think is still pretty impressive. You got guys like Braden Tracy for the future. In this past draft, guys like Jacob Perreault, who I think are going to be really solid NHL players. And I think the Ducks have a lot to look forward to. In terms of goaltending, too, Lucas Dahlstall, who I think is one of the most underrated, one of the most solid goaltending prospects out there. But then going on to number 6, I'm going to go to a team that has just, oh my goodness, they have so much to look forward to in the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, they've been pretty decent this year, if you haven't noticed already, and I'm just going to list off the prospects who I think will be good NHL players, because I had to put it on this freaking shoebox because I don't have any paper on me right now. Because I just want to list off all of them to you. Seth Jarvis, Ryan Suzuki, Noel Gunler, Jamison Reese, Jack Drury, Patrick Pistola, Joey Keane, Antoni Honka, Dominic Bach, Zion Niebeck, Dominic Finsori, Alexander Pashin, Tuka Tiskala, Pyotr Kravtsov, Vasily Ponomarev, and I could go down even farther. The Carolina Hurricanes have, in my opinion, the best depth in the prospect pool of any team out there. But now we can go officially into the top 5, into the top 5 prospect pools in the NHL right now. Next up, I'm going to have the Montreal Canadiens. The Montreal Canadiens, no surprise, being at this spot, obviously led by the man Cole Caufield. And even though Cole Caufield won't save anything for the Montreal Canadiens, he'll certainly help them once they can finally get that cap situation figured out. But the Canadiens outside of Cole Caufield have a lot to work with too. Kaden Primeau's going to be a pretty good goaltender in my opinion. On defense, they have one of the most complete defensive prospects or prospect pools out there with guys like Jordan Harris and Josh Brook and other guys like Jane Struble coming in. But the forward group of guys like also on top of that like Jan Mysak and other contributors there. The Habs have a pretty good future overall, and a lot of guys I think will be contributors at the NHL too. Then going on to number 4 though, and a team that in terms of prospect pool, especially these past couple of years, has been among the best and continues to be among the best in the New York Rangers. And the Rangers spot here isn't a surprise. I mean, you have the graduations of guys like Lafreniere and guys like Shesterkin and Keandre Miller, and they're still at this spot, which I think is super impressive for their pool right now. But you got amazing players like Nils Lundkvist and Zach Jones and Braden Schneider and all these good defensive prospects right now, especially Vitali Kravtsov on the forward group, Morgan Barron on the forward group, who I think are just going to get better and better as the years go by too. There's a lot to look forward to on the Rangers. Obviously, they have one of the best futures in the entire NHL, and the prospect pool is a big reason why. They continue to have graduates and continue continue to have amazing prospects still. Pretty marvelous if you ask me. But now getting us settled inside the top three prospect pools right now in the NHL. And I'm going to start out at number 3 with the Detroit Red Wings. The Detroit Red Wings inside the top 5, inside the top 3. Not too surprising for a team that's obviously been at the level they've at. Not exactly the most impressive team as of late. But Detroit's a team that has scouted amazingly well, has drafted amazingly well, and has been bad enough to get some amazing picks too. Obviously the top 2 in Moritz, Seider, and Lucas Raymond. We talked about Colorado having Newhook and Byron, but it's just an even bigger level of that. Moritz Seider might be the best defensive prospect in the NHL right now. Lucas Raymond might be one of, if not the best European prospect in the NHL right now. There is so much to like on that Red Wings team as well outside of those guys that I think will be good NHL players. They just drafted well considering their situations, and especially after this year too, we'll have even more surplus to add on top of that. But then going on to the top 2 spots, and I don't think it's any surprise whatsoever that the Ottawa Senators and the LA Kings are battling for number 1. These are the 2 teams I've had battling for number 1 for the past 1.5 years really, and they continue to add in the 2020 draft and continue to have amazing prospects in their pool. But going on to number 2, because one team has to be at number 2, sadly for Eugene Melnyk, the Ottawa Senators will place at number 2, and I think he's definitely losing a ton of sleep that he's not number 1 in my official 2021 rankings. But coming in at number 2, the Ottawa Senators, I think could have been number 1, but I think it's a good reason why they're not number 1. The main thing is because they've had prospects graduating. The LA Kings have kept all their prospects in their system, not really going up to the NHL or being fantastic whatsoever, and they're still kind of waiting on a bunch of their main prospects to get up to that level. For the Ottawa Senators, they've had guys like Tim Stützle and Josh Norris be great this year, and I think that's a good thing. If they had those guys still in their system, they might be number 1, but they're in the NHL and they're doing good. In my opinion, that's a good thing for the Senators. But now going on to number 1 and the official best prospect pool in the 2021 season, I have to give it to, once again, at number 1, the Kings of the Crown in the LA Kings. The LA Kings come in at number 1 in the official prospect rankings once again, year and year consecutively. And to me, it's no surprise. Once again, kind of the opposite of Ottawa. They kept all their guys in the AHL system, which has made the entire reign one of the most interesting and entertaining teams out there in hockey right now. But Quinton Byfield, Alex Turcotte, I could go down the list in terms of just centermen, but they have so much that I just absolutely love. Kaliev's on that team, Vegamo's on that team, and I again, my brain's farting right now, but I'll just list all the guys, just in terms of the forward group. There's so much to like there. LA, in my opinion, has one of the best futures out there, in my opinion, the best prospect pool out there, and when you look at the positions you really need. Defense, I still think there could be some holes there, but the forward group is going to be absolutely stacked in no time. I think they'll be so entertaining, and especially starting next year, will be a team that nobody really wants to face. They'll be so fun, so competitive, and a team that LA will definitely be proud of. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell if you've enjoyed the content and appreciate the video and also want to see more. Make sure you comment down below all your thoughts. What do you agree and disagree with my rankings, and where do you see your favorite team placing in the prospect pool rankings as well? Make sure you share this video with your friends, get it out there, everyone, and click on this card right here to watch all of my hockey rankings content right on my playlist. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Hopefully you're having a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video or stream. Goodbye.